In this video, I'm going to show you how to use this jig right here. So this is called the Sawmate, and one of the reasons I purchased this is, well, a couple of reasons. But the main is that it's all out of metal. Rockler has one that's more of a fiberglass blend, and I'm sure it works just fine, but I sort of wanted something that was all metal because that seems to last, especially when you have it sliding back and forth like this. So this is ionized metal, and this also is all metal here, the slide. On the bottom here we have our T-track piece here that fits right into the T-track on your saw, and it does expand, but I've not got it tight enough to really lock it in. It sort of make sure that it doesn't move back and forth, so it's sort of locked that way, but it still tends to want to go one way or the other, and it's not a big deal actually. It doesn't affect anything, as you'll see when we're making the cuts. The other thing I liked about it is it has inches and metric measurement here, and this is really important because you're going to see in the video that I actually have to make adjustments here, and having that measurement, that finite measurement where I can make small increments, allows me to get everything precise to the blade here. The other thing that's I like on it is it has a ball bearing. I think the other one has a ball bearing too, but this one is easily replaceable. So, you know, if this should wear out or something happen to it, which I doubt if it will, I can easily replace this. And it's about the same price. So you get an all metal product for the same price. So this is, I bought this one off of Amazon. I'll leave a link down below for you to check out. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is change out your blade. Now, here I have the combination blade, or it's actually an ultimate plywood and melamine blade. So it has a lot of teeth on it. And I want to change it out for a rip blade. And so in my case, I'm using the Freud Industrial glue line rip blade. And you want to use a rip blade anytime you're ripping wood, because that gives a much cleaner cut along the edge of the wood. Now, the melamine or the combination blade or something with a lot of teeth is perfect for cross cutting. But when you go in and ripping, you want something that will allow a lot, because it cuts relatively easy when it's ripping, and you don't want it to bind up, which you will do with a combination. So the ripping blade allows a lot of wood to be thrown out in between the cuts before the blade comes around, so that it doesn't bind up and cause burning. All right, so there's a couple different ways that you can get the proper measurement here. And in my case, I'm looking for a 3/4 inch. So I want a 3/4 inch space here. So I can just use a piece of wood that I already have measured, that's already cut the 3/4, and just push this right in there and tighten this down on that, and that's going to give me my 3/4. I can also use the calipers and measure between there and get my 3/4 if I want to use that. I can also use these bar tools here, which mainly, most of the time I use for the router. But what you want to do is you want to make sure every other blade, this blade is a thinner one. This one's curved out, cut out a little bit, chamfered on the end here. This one's a straight flat one. So you always want to make sure you're measuring to the straight flat one, because that's going to give you your precise cut right here on this side. So if I get those two and then that right there, I can also use that to make my measurement here in addition. Another way that you can do it is actually use the piece of wood, mark 3/4 inch, put it right up there, and bop this right up against the piece of wood. So why would one use this particular device instead of just making a 3/4 inch cut like this? Well, one of the reasons is that you're always dealing with a very thin piece here, so kickback is a good chance. You also have the blade against the fence, and here the wood against the blade and the fence here. So that's going to give you a lot of burn marks, or a lot more burn marks than you would get over here, theoretically. Not saying that you won't get any, but you could. This makes it very repetitive instead of just coming and making 3/4 inch measurements on the fence each time. This makes it very repetitive so that you just get a sample piece to show you. You basically would just run that over and then you make your cut. Now you want to not get it super tight up against there. You want to make sure that it can move back and forth. And the nice thing is this is going to hold that against the fence here. So it's going to give you a nice tight fit there. The other thing too is that this is going to allow you to have a wider piece here. Now eventually this piece is going to get down to the thin piece again, but you only have to deal with that once or twice. Whereas if you had this 3/4 and I got to make 10 cuts, I would have to deal with that 10 times. So it adds a little bit to safety. So overall, these are worth the money and worth having in your shop. And I think that this metal one, I looked at two of them. I looked at the one from Rockler, which is a lot of plastic. It's a resin type. And then this one, which is metal. And I went with this one. And the weird thing is that when Amazon saw that I was looking at Rockler and this one, I had this in my cart. And the next day when I went in my cart, I had like a 10% off coupon for this, which made this cheaper than the Amazon one. So don't tell me they're not watching what you're doing on the computer. They are. Anyway, I'm going to start making my cuts. I got this set at 3/4. Tighten this up really tight to make sure that this doesn't adjust in and out. Make my first cut. I will double check, make sure it's 3/4, and then I will make all of my rest. I'm making an adjustment here. It looked like it was about a 64th off, so I'm just making a slight adjustment here. I'll make another test cut. And again, just a scrap piece of wood here. That's just a tiny bit over 3/4, barely over the mark, but that is perfect for me. Okay, so let's recap here. You've seen how this thin cut trim jig works here on the saw. You can also use this on the bandsaw. You can also use this, use two of them on the router table to keep stuff against the fence if you wanted to do that. You notice that I used this smaller piece here to set this, because when you have a very long piece like this Purple Heart, and especially something that's heavy, it's really difficult to slide that fence and get that over, you know, while you're holding up the Purple Heart. So I used the smaller piece and just kept cutting it the same way. Now it gives you precise 3/4 inch pieces each time. And one of the advantages of using this over just bringing the fence in, one of the many advantages I should say, let me pull these out, that way I can hear myself. There I am. Forgot I have my earplugs in. Safety first. So one of the reasons that you want to use this instead of bringing the fence over is that it gives you a cleaner cut. Now, if you look here, I don't know, I'll try and get some close-ups of this, but I have a lot of burn marks here and not as many on this one here. Now, you do get some burn. This one actually is pretty clean. There's a little bit of a burn mark right there. You also get a little better cut because it's not pressed up against the fence. The other thing too is that woods like Purple Heart are notorious for cupping or bowing after you cut them. You sort of relieve the stress off the bigger board, and especially when you get thin pieces like this, they really start to cup and bow. Like if you look, if I hold this together, you can see how much this is separating up here. And when that happens between the fence and the blade, it really makes it tight. And then again, you're dealing with a small piece that you're trying to push through with this particular tool here. And it makes it difficult. Whereas when you have the bigger piece here and that little piece starts to bow up out here, it makes no difference. It sort of has free reign to do whatever it wants. And it makes it a little bit safer and easier to push everything through. Again, you're dealing with a wider piece till you finally get down to the smaller piece. Now, eventually I got down to a piece that is much thinner than the actual piece that I'm cutting. And so in that case, when that happens, the last cut I would make, and because I had to make all these cuts on this Purple Heart, because Purple Heart's expensive, and I had just enough to make all of my cuts, then I used my fence, and I brought my fence into the 3/4, and that's the only cut that I made. So I only had to make one cut, run real thin cut, using this method. Now you can say, well, you know, John, you could, you know, just move it in 3/4 and save yourself, you know, this is like 45 bucks. Save yourself 45 bucks, which is true. But you have to remember that every time you bring this in, it's not just the 3/4 inch or 1 inch or whatever you're going to make. It's going to be the 3/4 plus the 1/8 inch blade here. And so you always have to keep doing that math each time and making sure. And when you're dealing with 1/8 inch, or if you get like a thin blade, you know, if you get the thinner blade, then you got, what is that, 1/8 inch, so that'd be 3/16. So then you're going 3/16 each time. So you have to do a lot of math, whereas this, it's one setup. Once you keep bopping against there every time, you're making a 3/4 inch cut every time. You don't have to keep measuring or doing the math if you're working with your fence. So would I recommend getting this? Yes, if you're doing anything that requires any type of cuts like this. Now, if you notice earlier in my channel, and I'll be doing that as soon as these cabinets are done, I do a lot of segment turning. And segment turning requires thin cuts like this, like 3/4 inch, 1.25 inch. And this is the perfect tool for that. So for me, this tool is I'm gonna be using this a lot. And I regret that I didn't have this earlier because it does give you a cleaner cut and a more precise cut every time. So hopefully you enjoyed that. You know, think about getting one of these tools here. This is, you know, you get any brand you want, they all work perfectly well. You can probably design something like this out of a piece of wood, a bearing, and you know, the pieces that you buy here. But actually, for I think this was $43 or $42. It might have been less than that with a 10% off. I gotta go check my price. I'll have it pop down here, you know, because I don't think ahead when I do videos. For the price that you pay for this is all solid metal. This is a nice piece of tool here. I mean, it's well manufactured. It has your guide marks right here, which makes it easy. You saw that when I had to make that little adjustment. I had these millimeters right there that I could adjust it on. I also had 1/16 of an inch that I could adjust it here. So I think it's well worth the investment. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. It's getting hot out here in the shop. I live in the desert, so we're getting close to 100 degrees. So I'm gonna go in. Yeah, you can see a little bit of sweat here. So I'm gonna make my way into the house, into the air conditioning, and relax for the rest of the day. I always come out and make all of my cuts early in the morning and then work in the garage, you know, gluing up or doing things that I could do inside where I could have the door closed and some air on me. Anyway, thanks for tuning in on this. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.